What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to a new series that I'm going to be starting on my channel, and it's not really a video, as you can see. It's going to be more of a podcast, to be honest. Basically, each week going forward from now on, I'm actually going to be doing a football talk show, basically, on the Premier League. I'm not too sure what I'm going to title this series. Obviously, by the time this video goes up, I will have a title for it. But basically, what we're going to be doing today is we're just going to look back at the first game week of the Premier League. Obviously, all the results, all 10 matches. We'll just discuss them, and then we'll take a look to, the weekend coming. So obviously 10 games coming this weekend. There's a few crackers in there, including the North East derby with Middlesbrough and Sunderland, I believe they are playing. Yes, so they are. So in the future, by the way, if you are a YouTuber, do let me know and either get in touch with me on Twitter or drop me a message on Skype. I'll have my Skype and Twitter in the description, and basically going forward I'm going to try and get some guests on here with me and we can just discuss football. This is going to be like an uncut, unedited, just discussion type thing, so if there are some pauses, if there is a bit of swearing, just ignore it. It's completely uncut and I'm just going to discuss the football. So let's actually just go straight to it. So I've got all the scores next to me over here. I've also got my phone and a water bottle because I've just been running, so I'm quite thirsty, to be honest. But, so I've got all the scores, and then obviously I've got my phone just to see, the goal scorers and so on. If I didn't see some of the games, I did see most of the games, the highlights and so on, match of the day. And then I watched, how many games did I actually watch? I watched the Hull Leicester one. I watched the Man City Sunderland. I also watched the two games on Super Sunday, and I watched the majority of the Chelsea game. I also seen most of the Everton game as well, because I was actually out and it was on when I was out. So we'll start off with the first game. Let's start off with Hull versus Leicester. So obviously last season's champions Leicester City, shock defeat really to Hull City. I know everyone was really putting like Jamie Vardy, Riyad Mahrez in their fancy football teams. Some people are even going like triple captain on Vardy. Everyone was expecting such a comfortable victory for Leicester. Obviously Hull City only have 13 fit, first team players, senior players. So everyone thinks, oh, Hull are in real crisis. They're going to get absolutely battered. I even predicted it myself in my Premier League predictions video that they're probably going to get the lowest points tally in the Premier League. But to be fair to them, they're quite way there already. Can't actually remember how many points. I'm just going to take a look at that now, actually. How many points Derby actually got for the lowest Premier League tally. But whilst I'm doing that, I'll just talk about the game. So, obviously, I believe Hull actually went in front, didn't they? So I'm just a bit distracted here. Derby lowest points tally, I believe it's about 9. Just Googling it now. So they got 11 points. So Hull are already a quarter of the way there. Obviously, they've already picked up 3 points. But as I was saying, so Hull actually went a goal up. And then obviously Leicester got a penalty. A bit of a controversial one. By all accounts, I think it was controversial as well. But obviously that tends to happen in football. You get, you win some, you lose some. Obviously, Leicester getting the luck of the draw in the first one. But obviously, so it was just before half time that Hull City actually went ahead. It was, I believe it was on like the 46th minute. So obviously 45 plus 1. And then it was literally just after half time. Leicester came out. Couldn't have asked for a more perfect start to the second half, really. Riyad Mahrez slotting away a penalty. And Robert Snodgrass actually putting Hull, 2-1 up, which eventually turned out to be the winner. In terms of, like, the match stats, I'll just get them up on my phone right now because I can't remember the game too much, but Leicester, for me, I'm just not actually going to look at the stats. I'm just going to talk about it, from what I thought of the game itself. Leicester just did not look like the team from last season at all. And I know it's the first game of the season. They're going to be rusty. Everyone's rusty. We'll see that throughout the results. But for me, Leicester, I've already predicted they're not going to get anywhere near what they did last season. I just feel like they could really slip off, especially losing to Hull. And this is why, because I feel like Hull, yes, they are in a crisis, and everyone knows that. They turned up to protest. They end up leaving, celebrating a victory against last season's champions. I don't care how much you've slipped off, you should still be beating Hull City, and that's no disrespect to Hull. I think everyone in the league's saying it, so it's a bit worrying that Leicester couldn't get the job done. And I do feel like Claudio Ranieri even looked, a bit worried on the sideline. There was a lot of times where he looked very agitated, which is something we didn't see from him at all last season. He was very calm, he was very collective, always encouraging his players, even when they were like behind, actually, behind. It wasn't actually that often last season that they were behind, but when they weren't, leading, even if they were just drawing, he was still very encouraging of his players, but he actually looked quite frustrated, and that's telling because, if Claudio Ranieri's frustrated, which you don't see very often, he knows something's wrong. Obviously, losing N'Golo Kante is such a huge problem. I feel like the Riyad Mahrez situation, which has been solved now by the looks of things, obviously he signed a new deal, but that was looming over him last week, so maybe that affected his performance, and maybe his teammates around him. You don't know the type of effect something like that has on the whole club. Everyone says, it's going to affect the player. It can affect the whole club, because if the whole team think that their best player could be leaving, it's going to have such a huge psychological effect on everyone involved. But that's enough on the Hull City game. Hull did beat Leicester. I don't know what happened to my voice then. Hull did beat Leicester. Obviously, probably the shock result of the weekend. I'm just looking at them. I don't think there was many other... Yeah, there's all the shock results, but you can't argue with that. The team that everyone's predicting to finish bottom have just beaten last season's champions. There's no more shock results than that. We'll move on to Burnley versus Swansea. So Burnley were at home, newly promoted, but it seemed like a relatively, it was an alright contest, pretty even to be fair. Probably Swansea had the better of the chances. Didn't watch the game in full, just seen the highlights, but obviously Leroy Fair scoring a goal quite late on in the game. I believe it was within the last 10 minutes. Correct me if I am wrong, but I do believe it was within the last 10 minutes. Burnley and Swansea are two teams I think this season aren't going to do particularly well. Now, that's not to say I think they'll get relegated. I do actually feel Burnley may get relegated, but Swansea, I certainly think they've probably got enough to stay up, which kind of reflected in the result. A 1-0 victory for them. And obviously, I believe they've signed someone this week, Swansea, or maybe it was last week. I believe they broke the club record transfer. I may be wrong on that, but I think they have. Obviously, losing Ashley Williams to Everton is such a huge blow to them, in my opinion. You can't argue with that. If you lose your captain, it's serious. It's serious business, especially when he's playing so well. He's done really well at the Euros, and £12 million. A lot of people are discussing this. It seems like a bit of a bargain deal, and for me, it really is because a player of that quality to come in. Yes, he's old, 31. He could have done a job for maybe 2-3 more seasons at Swansea, and he's obviously going to do that at Everton now, which I'm not saying they're going to be direct rivals, but if Everton finish mid-table and Swansea perform a bit better than everyone's thinking and also, finish mid-table, then you're looking at a rival club. Obviously, everyone expects Everton to do a bit better than Swansea, but you never know how the season may pan out, and Swansea may regret that, but I do feel like they're going to have enough to stay up. As for Burnley, I'm not too sure how the season pans out for them. They've obviously got Liverpool next, which we'll discuss in a little while, but they would have liked to have got off to a good start at home, first game of the season, back in the Premier League, at home, in front of your own fans. You're probably expecting a much better performance than, what your team have put out, so they'll be disappointed with that one. Obviously, Swansea have made some decent signings. Obviously, Llorente's coming for them, which is it's a good signing for them, to be fair. But obviously, Swansea get the result in the end, and they move into the top half of the table. Not that the table is very relevant right now. We're only in game week 1, but we'll move on to the next game, and it was Crystal Palace. This was actually one of the shock results I was actually on about. Crystal Palace at home. They lost to West Brom. Now, it's not the most shocking result because it's Palace and West Brom. They're pretty much, mid-table teams. Palace probably think they're a bit better, and to be fair, in my opinion, they probably are. No disrespect to West Brom, that's just my personal opinion. But obviously, West Brom getting the job done. I believe it was Rondon, was it, who got the goal? And again, it was quite a late goal. I don't think it was as late as the Swansea one. I think it was, maybe about 15 minutes from time, 20 minutes from time, something like that. But obviously Palace have got work to do. They've obviously agreed a fee. At the time of me recording this video, by the way, guys, it's Friday. It's literally the day before. Well, actually, there's Friday night football tonight, so game week 2 is underway tonight. But obviously last night, so Thursday night, Crystal Palace have agreed a fee with Liverpool for £32 million for Benteke. I'll touch on that in just a minute. But for me, I said it in my Premier League predictions video, West Brom under Tony Pulis are going to be a difficult team to beat. They always are, Tony Pulis sides and, known to be difficult to beat, and they've proven that by going away to Palace, which is not an easy place to go. Believe me, as a Liverpool fan, we hate going there, and they actually got the job done, so fair play to West Brom. But as for Palace, obviously they've made some decent signings. They've brought in, who have they brought in? They've brought in Steve Mandanda, Who else? There's James Tompkins, and there's another one, Andros Townsend. So, I think they brought in other players, but they're 3 players that you just need to mention straight away. They're obviously looking to bring in Christian Benteke, which, if he's been agreed, he's apparently having his medical today. So, obviously, he's going to strengthen that striker area as such, because I do feel like Crystal Palace probably do need a striker, especially losing at home to West Brom. It's not what they would want. The fans would definitely be expecting a much better result there, and I think the Premier League was probably expecting a much better performance from Crystal Palace, and especially in terms of results. I'm not too sure how they played. This was one of the matches I didn't actually watch. I'm just looking at the match stats here. It seems like Palace had a lot of possession, but to be fair, chances pretty even, same amount of shots, same amount on target, same blocked passes look around the same. Key passes, West Brom had a few more. There was a clear-cut chance actually for Crystal Palace, which obviously they didn't score, but by the looks, obviously West Brom did score, but they didn't actually have a clear-cut chance. Apparently I can get highlights on my phone because I'm a Sky customer, which will help me out in future weeks, because if there's games I've not seen, I can always watch the highlights. I'm trying to sign into Sky right now. I'm not too sure on our password because it's a family account. I'll just try and sign in. But as I was saying, I do feel like Christian Benteke is really going to strengthen Crystal Palace's team, and if they can play to his, style of play, because obviously he does have a very unique style of play, Benteke, he likes the ball to his head, which obviously Andros Townsend's going to, provide him with, and it's clear that Crystal Palace are signing quite, big guys. Obviously James Tompkins can do a job at centre-half, he's obviously a big guy, he's going to win a lot of headers, so they're obviously looking to play quite a physical brand of football, which sometimes does take a little bit longer to, embed into a team, so maybe that's why there was a bit of a shock result for them at the start of the season, but a great win for West Brom, and I'm quite sure both, Crystal Palace will bounce back from that, especially with the signing of Benteke. Going to move on to Everton now, my Merseyside rivals. They played Tottenham. I'm just going to get the game up while I have a quick drink. Okay, so I know I said this would be uncut, but obviously had to take that phone call. It was work, but as we were saying, we were just discussing the Everton and Tottenham game, so I can't actually remember where I got up to, so I'll just start again. Everton took the lead early on through Ross Barkley, and then obviously later on in the game, Eric Lamela getting a goal from Tottenham. Barkley's goal was a bit of a strange one, but we're seeing it more and more often now, aren't we, in football, where a player takes a free kick from that type of angle, quite some distance out, and it's more of a cross, but it's a very clever bit of, it's quite a clever skill to actually master, to put a free kick into such an area where it can be attacked and it also can go straight in. It's a very difficult skill to actually master. And obviously Ross Barkley doing it quite well, so you're just putting it into that area where your teammates can attack it, but it's actually going to fool the goalkeeper, so if no one does actually touch it, it's going to go straight in. And that's what happened. Barkley just whipped in a free kick, and it actually went all the way through. No one actually got a touch on it at all, and obviously Everton went 1-0 up very early on, only 5 minutes into the game, and obviously Everton, for me, they actually looked quite good, obviously under Ronald Koeman right now, obviously new manager, they actually looked decent, although Tottenham did have a lot more of the ball. Everton still looked quite a decent team. Obviously, they were very undermotivated last season under Roberto Martinez. A lot of the players were unsettled, and obviously that's escalated over the summer by the sale of John Stones, and obviously Lukaku making noises that he may want to leave. But obviously, they've kept hold of him for now. I believe he's actually injured, isn't he, Lukaku? I'm not too sure on that, but I think he is. And obviously, Everton are looking at a few more transfers. I believe he's actually come out and said 4 to 5 more deals, and obviously there's, I believe, only about 2 weeks left of the window, so Ronald Koeman's leaving it very, very late. Let's just see. So we'll touch on Tottenham very quickly. So Tottenham obviously getting the goal through Lamela. Tottenham didn't look great, and obviously Hugo Lloris got injured. They obviously had a lot of the ball, but we'll touch on Hugo Lloris because that's probably the main talking point from this game. Hugo Lloris actually picking up an injury, which is going to keep him out for a month. Obviously, you never like to see players get injured, but for me personally, Lloris, he's out for a month. Liverpool play Tottenham in about a week's time now, so obviously it's going to benefit us playing Tottenham at White Hart Lane. Hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of that. I believe Victor Wanyama played for Tottenham. Apparently he played well. I'm just reading the report here. We'll just take a look at the ratings. Did anyone really shine? So Dele Alli didn't play too great. Apparently, obviously, I seen bits and bobs of this game when I was out and about. It was on in the background on. I believe it's like, what's it called nowadays? Is it like the Nissan, like on Sky Sports, like the Nissan Match Choice or whatever it's called. So this game was on. And I just seen bits of it. Obviously, Tottenham also, they've signed the striker. Is it Johansson? The striker. I think he was around £27 million. I think he came on as a substitute. I'm not too sure on that. Obviously, Stecklenburg actually got man of the match. I'm not too sure if he got the official man of the match, but a lot of people on Twitter saying he played very well. I'll just see if he did actually get official man of the match. Yeah, he did. So Stecklenburg obviously had a good game for Everton. So it does say Tottenham did have chances, because you're not going to get man of the match in goal if you've not actually had to do anything. So Tottenham must have played relatively well, but obviously a lot of the talk was about Everton and how well they played. So encouraging signs for Everton. Ashley Williams didn't play, but obviously a 1-1 draw in that type of match, I believe. How have they actually done in the past? I'm quite sure Tottenham actually drew against Everton last time out. I can't remember. I remember Dele Alli scored quite a decent goal. It was just earlier this year. I actually watched it because a lot of my family are Evertonians. So obviously for that game, Everton-Tottenham, first game of the season, it's obviously one of the more difficult games for both sides. You know, Tottenham travelling Goodison Park to never easy, and then obviously playing Tottenham at home is never an easy game. So I think 1-1 is probably a fair reflection. We'll move on to the next game anyway. And it has seen the Premier League new boys Middlesbrough draw 1-1 at home to Stoke, and obviously Middlesbrough took the lead early on, and Shaqiri equalising in the latter stages of the game. Alvaro Negredo actually getting the goal for Middlesbrough. Middlesbrough look like they have quite a decent team. It'll be interesting to see how they do. I've actually predicted them to stay up. I can't remember if I predicted them to stay up comfortably or whether they'll just stay up, but obviously Negredo's a decent signing for them. Obviously we've had Stuart Downing at Liverpool, it didn't really work out for him there, but I feel like he is a decent player. And obviously Victor Valdez in goal is he's a great player, great goalkeeper to have. Obviously he's a little older, so obviously he's not going to be up to the standard he was years ago, but he's still a great player nevertheless. And as for Stoke, I don't know if Stoke will be happy with that result, because obviously Middlesbrough are actually, I watched a bit of them last season in the Championship, they're actually quite a difficult team to beat at their home ground, at, what's it called? Is it the Riverside Stadium? I believe it is. So maybe Stoke won't be too disappointed, especially with being a goal down very early on. But for me, Stoke have actually got quite a decent team. I'm just looking at it here. So Shawcross I really rate as their centre-back. But it's more the players going forward. So they've got like Diouf, Arnautovic, Bojan, Shaqiri, Imbula. And then on the bench they had like... I don't think they've even got all their players fit. There's players that are missing from here, but they've got Joe Allen. They've got Muniesa. Is he the centre-back? I think he is. Obviously, Peter Crouch is still there. Jonathan Walters, he always likes to pop up with a goal or two. So Stoke do actually have a decent team, and obviously under Mark Hughes, they're going to be playing some quite attractive football. I do feel like they'll probably push on after that result. They'll be happy to have got a draw, especially, as I was saying, from being a goal down. So for me, they'll probably take a bit of quite a few positives away from that game, and obviously they'll push on. Who have the Stoke got this season? This weekend. They've got Manchester City, so obviously that's going to be a tough game for them, but not too bad result for either team there. We'll move on to the next one, which was Southampton Watford. Yet again, another 1-1 draw. I believe Watford actually took a surprising early lead here, and for me, I do feel like Watford could actually do quite well this season. I'm just trying to find that game. Where is it? I'm looking up and down. There it is. Right, so as I was saying, Watford actually got the early lead through Capoue, 9 minutes in. Redmond equalised, and it was actually around similar times to Shaqiri equalised, I think, around 58 minutes. So Redmond getting the equaliser for Southampton, and then Ben Watson actually getting sent off for Watford, which you never really want to see, especially on the first game of the season. We'll take a look at the match stats whilst I'm just rambling on. So Southampton dominated possession as you'd expect, but with only 15 minutes between the red card and full-time whistle, maybe Southampton didn't quite have enough time to push on for a win, but obviously the momentum would have been with them. I'm just looking at the match stats, it seems like Southampton dominated, so Watford obviously very decent in defence. Southampton having 65% possession here, 24 shots, only 6 on target though, so a lot off target and block shots. But obviously, looking at this, you'd imagine Southampton probably deserved to win this game. This was one that I didn't actually manage to catch. I'm just going to see who won man of the match and so on. See who had a bit of a decent game. So Dusan Tadic for Southampton. I feel like Southampton, again, another team that do have a decent team. It's whether they're going to blow up, because I'm quite sure Southampton have got Europa League football this season, haven't they? So if they feel the negative effects of that, which most teams do, statistically proven, they could struggle. It's whether they've got the strength and depth in the squad. I'm not too sure on that. But as for first team 11 and a few subs, they've obviously got a decent team. Obviously Charlie Austin, he's going to be a great striker for them. They've also got Shane Long, who's also a player, a striker for them. Nathan Redmond's a very good signing. I really like Virgil van Dijk at the back. I do feel like Southampton have got a decent squad. As for Watford, they're after what's his name? I'm actually doing a player experiments video on him. Is it Roberto Pereira? I think that's his name, from Juventus, the centre attack mid. They're heavily linked with him. That would be a huge signing for them, and obviously to go away to Southampton for any team and get a draw, especially with a man down, for 15 minutes of the game, it's a decent result for Watford. I think Southampton will probably be disappointed. So overall, Watford's probably pleased, Southampton not so, but I do feel like both teams are going to have a relatively decent season. We're going to move on to the final game of Saturday's fixtures, and it's Manchester City with Pep Guardiola and Sunderland. Now, this was a game I actually seen live when I was out, and obviously Sergio Aguero putting Man City a goal up. Obviously Aguero having a great week. He actually scored a hat-trick. We say a great week because he's actually taken 3 penalties this week. He scored 1 but missed 2. He scored the 1 in the Sunderland game, but then he missed 2 penalties in the Champions League, but still went on to score a hat-trick. That just shows the quality this guy's got. Obviously Jermaine Defoe finding a bit of space in Man City's defence, which, I don't know if any of you guys watched this game, I was very intrigued by Pep Guardiola's tactics. He essentially played a back 4 with, I'm just going to take a look at the lineup because I want to get the name right. Was it Fernando or Fernandinho? Right, so it was Fernandinho. So I'm just going to read you out City's back lineup. Obviously the key talking point, Joe Hart, was dropped, and apparently it looks like he's going to be offloaded. So Caballero started in goal. Sanya, Stones, Kolarov and Clichy were the back 4. Needed a drink there. So as I said, Sanya, Stones, Kolarov and Clichy were the back 4. But Fernandinho was like a defensive mid. And essentially how Guardiola had them playing was Fernandinho would slot into a back 3 with Stones and Kolarov, and Clichy and Sanya would like wrap around the front of them and be 2 defensive mids. It was a very interesting formation, a very interesting tactic by Guardiola. It's something we'll probably see developed over the course of the season. But City, for me, didn't actually look that great. You'd expect a much more convincing victory over Sunderland, obviously with David Moyes as the manager. But obviously Defoe got through with about 20 minutes to go and scored a nice goal. So I believe he slotted it through the keeper's legs, or at least it was underneath him, something like that. And then, very unfortunate for Paddy McNair, who actually came on as a substitute. I believe he was anyway. He came on as a sub for Sunderland. Obviously, just signing from Man United, I think he signed from, and he scored an own goal. You'll obviously be very, very disappointed by that, gifting his ex-local rivals a victory in Pep's first game. But for me, City would have liked to have been much more comfortable. I do feel like they'll do well this season. I predicted them to potentially win the league, so for me, I still think they will actually be alright this season. But, 2-1 at home to Sunderland, you'd expect a bit better. One thing I also want to touch upon, City couldn't sell out their stadium for Pep Guardiola's first game in charge, which I do feel is a bit disappointing. But I'm not going to get too drawn on that because a lot of City fans actually get quite annoyed at that. So I'll just move on from that very quickly. We'll move into Sunday's game. So obviously City getting 3 points, which is what they want, but they would have liked to have been a bit more comfortable. Moving on to Sunday's games, I'm just concerned for time, so I'm just going to quickly get through the next 3 games. We'll start off with Jose Mourinho's 3-1 victory in his first competitive... Actually, no, he had the Community Shield, although people just say that's a friendly with a cup. But obviously, his first Premier League game for manager Manchester United, resulting in a 3-1 victory over Bournemouth. They were actually 3-0 up. Juan Mata getting a very, very lucky goal. This was one of the games I did watch. Mata, I believe it was a back pass. He ran through, he had a shot, the keeper saved it, it hit the player on the leg that gave the back pass in the first place to Mata, rebounded straight into Mata's path, who was beyond the keeper, and he just tucked it into an open goal. It was a very, 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 very lucky goal. Then Wayne Rooney's goal, and this was the annoying thing for me. United, the scoreline was a bit flattering. Granted, they are a decent team, United, but I do feel like it was maybe potentially a bit flattering, because I do feel Bournemouth played quite well up until the first goal. Rooney's goal was, I believe it was a cross from Valencia, and Anthony Martial tried a volley, and he volleyed it into the floor, which just happened to find into Rooney's path, and then he headed it. To be fair to Rooney, it was a very, very good header, very well directed. He just got enough power on it. So in terms of the header itself, excellent finish, but it was a bit lucky, to actually get the chance in the first place. And then Zlatan Ibrahimovic, of course, he was going to score. There was no Paul Pogba for this game because he was actually suspended from the Italian league, which does carry over, but obviously the other main man, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, does score a goal from about 25-30 yards. He just drills it along the floor. I do feel like Bournemouth keeper could have done a bit better. I believe it's Arthur Boruc, is it? They may have changed him. I'm not too sure now. It's still Boruc, but I do feel like he probably could have done a bit better. And then Adam Smith pulling a goal back just 5 minutes after Ibra's goal on the 69th minute to make it 3-1. But there's not too much to take away from this game. United didn't play great. I don't feel. Some people may feel that they did, but obviously they got the victory, and that's what shows, a sign of potential champions. If you do not play great, but you're still getting results, it does show that you are a decent team. And obviously United got that done, and Jose Mourinho is very known for it, and so Man United over the years. So I feel like we could be seeing a lot more of that this season. As for Bournemouth, I do feel like they're going to have enough quality to, avoid relegation, despite the second season syndrome that everyone bangs on about. I feel like Jordan Ibe could be a really good signing for them. Obviously, I do rate a lot of their other players, so I feel like Bournemouth, you lose at home to United as Bournemouth, you can't really complain. United are very, very strong this season, so that game kind of went as expected. Now, we're going to move on to Game of the Week. I'm going to do this as a little feature within this podcast type thing. Game of the Week every single week, where if I'm on it just myself, or hopefully going forwards we'll have some guests on, but when we do have guests we'll just take a vote. But for me, as I'm the only one this week, it's going to be Arsenal versus Liverpool. If you've not seen this game, get the highlights right now. It was absolutely crazy. So, as a Liverpool fan, I'm happy we got the win, and I'll touch on a few other things in a few moments, but the game didn't start off great for us. We didn't look great, to be fair, and then obviously Theo Walcott takes I don't know if it was a good touch or a lucky touch, I'm not going to comment, but he takes some sort of touch which directs the ball past Alberto Moreno. Moreno just dives in, gives away a penalty, and then Simon Mignolet's getting a bit of a habit of saving penalties on the opening game of the season. He done it a few years back against Stoke, and he done it again this time round. Theo Walcott's penalty was saved, but literally about 60 seconds later, Theo Walcott, again, Alberto Moreno's fault, starts wandering the pitch, and huge gap left him behind. Walcott's in, and he just, slides the ball past Mignolet. Great finish, to be fair to him. Can't really say anything about Mignolet, can't say anything about the defence apart from Moreno. Klopp's actually just come out and blamed Lallana, I think, for giving the ball away. But, Lallana gave the ball away, but Moreno's positioning was poor, as it always is. Then Coutinho, the magician, he produces a bit of magic. Free kick from about 30-35 yards out. You're looking at it and you're like, surely he's not going to shoot. And if he does, Petr Cech's a good goalkeeper. This isn't going to go in. But, just don't doubt this lad. He shoots, he scores. Brilliant. We go into half-time 1-1. And that's where I feel we won that game. When we knock Arsenal's confidence going into half-time thinking they are leading, but you just go and score right on the stroke of half-time, that's where we won that game. Now, I know they clawed it back to 4-3, but I still feel like we won that game mentally at that moment. And obviously we came out in the second half. If you've not seen it, we just came out firing. Adam Lallana 4 minutes after half-time. Let me just try and remember this goal. So it was Firmino. He played it into Coutinho, a little flick around the corner. Wijnaldum dinks it over the top of the Arsenal defence. Adam Lallana with some sublime chest control, blasted. Well, he doesn't even blast it, to be fair. He actually quite controlled, finished past Petr Cech 2-1 to us. And then what was next? It was Coutinho again to make it 3-1. this is what Klopp likes to play, this full throttle football. We've seen it for about 20 minutes of this game, and if we can sustain that over a full 90 minutes, Liverpool can be very decent this season. But obviously Coutinho, I think it was about 36, 35 passes, something like that, in the lead up to the goal, and then it was eventually Klein beats his man, I believe it was Monreal, puts the ball into the box. Coutinho with a nice little finish with his left, it was his left shin actually, I was going to say his left foot, but it was actually his left shin. And then Sadio Mane, another bit of individual genius, he gets the ball quite some way away from goal and right by the manager's dugout, and he just dribbles, he goes past one, he goes past two, does a little, don't even know what to call it, he does like a little flick to get it onto his left foot, and then he just drills it into the top hand corner. Excellent finish. Then obviously Oxlade-Chamberlain, within like about, I don't know, probably a minute again, he goes and scores down the other end. Little deflection off Lovren, takes it past Mignolet, and Callum Chambers gave us a nervy ending. This was an excellent game, to be fair. 7 goals, so it was a Santi Cazorla free kick. It was kind of like Ross Barkley's, in such that if no one got a touch, it may have well gone in anyway. But Callum Chambers does get a little touch on it, and it ends up going past Simon Mignolet. And it gives us a very nervy final 15 minutes, but Liverpool do hold on for the victory. As always, Arsenal fans start, like moaning, saying, we need this, we need that, Wenger out. It always happens. They've lost the last 3 seasons, the first home game, the first game of the season, so it's kind of expected. And as for Liverpool, we've won our last 4 opening day games now, I think it might be. I feel like, if we can keep that 20 minutes performance, even if we do that every single game, just, 20 minutes every game, we could be a real threat, and it would be rather strange if we just perform for 20 minutes every single game and end up winning games. But we do need to tighten up on the defence. You can't really be, conceding 3 goals but having to score 4 to win. It's a bit like the 2013-14 season, where we could score, where we concede like 4 goals a game but score 5. We can't be doing that all season, because as it's shown in the end, we could not win the league that way. I do feel like we should tighten up the defence, and I'm quite sure Klopp will. He's had obviously quite 9 months now with his team. I think he's probably starting to get used to it, starting to know the players, starting to know the weaknesses, the strengths, how he wants to play. We've seen a bit of a changed system, so I do feel like Liverpool and Arsenal will do quite well this season. I'm not too sure which teams will get top 4. I've actually predicted Liverpool for top 4, and I've actually at the minute I've predicted Arsenal not to do so, and Wenger to actually obviously leave at the end of his contract at the end of the season. Move on to the final game from last week. Chelsea 2-1 victory over West Ham. So they took the lead through, was it Eden Hazard? It was just after half time, a penalty. I think it was, and did he drill it right down the middle? I think he did. It may have been someone else that done that, but I think it was Hazard. And then was it Collins that actually, is that his name, Collins? I'm quite sure it is. He's like the ginger / bald guy, if that makes sense. He got the goal for West Ham to get them back into the game, and then obviously right at the death, as Chelsea always seem to do, they pop up with a goal. Diego Costa, getting the goal, and sparked quite outrageous celebrations from Conte in his first Premier League game at Stamford Bridge. But obviously he's going to be happy. He's just won the game in the last minute, and I can't really say anything being a Liverpool fan with Klopp's outrageous celebrations. But obviously Chelsea getting the business done. I feel like Chelsea have got a decent team this season, but as I said, my only concern is, do they have enough goals in them? Obviously Costa scored. I can't actually remember what that goal was like. I'm trying to think now. I really can't remember. But obviously the penalty, they got a penalty. They scored that. So I just feel like Chelsea may not have enough goals in them, because Conte is a very defence-minded coach. If they don't have enough goals in them, then they struggle. But if they score, 2-3 goals a game, then they're going to do really well this season and could potentially mount a title challenge. But that was the first game week. We're just going to quickly, so basically in this series, what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to spend the majority of the time actually talking over last week's games, and then very quickly touch upon the week coming, because obviously we can't really talk about it because it's not actually happened. So I'm just going to give you my predictions and who could be the key men in the 10 games coming this weekend. Let's just jump into the first one, Man United v Southampton. Okay, so we see our first Friday night football. Man United play Southampton at Old Trafford. For me, looking at Southampton, they failed to break down Watford, and United were scoring goals against Bournemouth. I do feel like United are probably going to have the edge there. I'm not too sure if Paul Pogba's actually going to play. I'll take a look at Sky Sports just to see what they say. Because they may have a bit of inside information. Pogba still may be suspended, to be fair. Actually, it's coming up here. What does it say about him? Team news. Mourinho called Paul Pogba his first appearance. So yeah, he is in contention. He's confident he's fit enough, even though he doubts he'll be able to play 90 minutes. So Paul Pogba could feature for the first time for Man United tonight. I do feel like United have probably got enough to see off Southampton. I'm predicting a home win for Manchester United. We're moving on to Stoke, so we're moving into Saturday now. Stoke at home to Manchester City. Now, as I said, City weren't too convincing over Sunderland, and Stoke, they got the draw against Middlesbrough. They had to fight it out. It's a tough place to go, as I mentioned, Middlesbrough. I feel like this could be a draw. It's got a draw written all over it. Britannia Stadium's well known to be a difficult place. Everyone always says, could they do on a cold, rainy night in Stoke? It's not going to be night time, but it's going to be cold and it's going to be raining by all accounts. So it'll be interesting to see how City's, Pep Guardiola's City team does handle that. But for me, I do feel like Stoke could potentially snatch a draw against Manchester City. Liverpool v Burnley, the 3 o'clock kickoffs now. I do feel like Liverpool are probably going to have enough for Burnley. Obviously, Sadio Mane is a doubt with the shoulder injury, but it's only a doubt for this game. But even if he does miss this match, I still feel like we've probably got enough to see off Burnley. I mean, if Swansea can beat them at Turf Moor, I don't see why Liverpool can't. Swansea versus Hull, I've actually gone with the Swansea victory. Even though Hull surprised everyone beating last season's champions, Leicester City, I feel like Swansea going back to the Britannia after a first game week victory, they'll be buzzing. They'll probably have a decent atmosphere there. It's a very, very very small stadium, not small, but very compact stadium. The fans really get behind the team. I feel like Swansea have got enough to see off Hull City. Spurs versus Palace. So Tottenham v Crystal Palace. I feel like Tottenham, Crystal Palace will want to try and bounce back, but Tottenham themselves didn't actually get a victory. I know Palace did lose and Spurs only drew, but first game at White Hart Lane after a disappointing end to last season. They did finish third, but obviously they slipped off massively towards the end. Spurs will want to prove a point, so I do feel like Spurs are going to have enough to beat Crystal Palace. Watford versus Chelsea. I've gone with the Chelsea victory. I was a bit hesitant to predict that because I'm not too sure. Watford's obviously looking relatively decent at Southampton, held on for a draw even after having a man sent off, and then Chelsea, are they going to be able to score enough goals? Well, I'm sure we'll see over the coming weeks. This could be one of the games where they are really tested, away from home. In a decent, they're going to come up against a decent team in Watford, so it'll be interesting to see. But just purely based on reputation, I've gone with Chelsea for the victory there. West Brom versus Everton. West Brom, did they lose? Or no, they actually got a win last week, didn't they? Rondon against Palace, yeah. And then Everton drew at home to Tottenham. Again, I'm going for another draw for Everton. I just feel like it's going to take Koeman a few weeks to, get it right, get it clicking, get it, everything nailed down. I feel like West Brom, they're going to be on a high against after the win against Palace. But obviously, I just feel like Everton are probably going to have enough to hold them to a draw, maybe a goalless draw or a 1-1 draw, something like that. Leicester versus Arsenal, the final game on Saturday. Obviously, both teams losing last week. They'll try and bounce back. This game could go one or two ways for me. It could be really open, and the better team on the counter attack will end up winning it on the day. Or both teams will be a bit tentative to actually, they'll be a bit scared to actually lose 2 games on the bounce, and that's what I've predicted. Both teams will be a bit scared to actually lose 2 games on the bounce, because then you really get the pressure from your fans. I know Leicester won't, because they won the league last season. That was just absolutely crazy. But definitely Arsenal, they will feel the pressure if they lose 2 games on the bounce. So I do feel like that game could be a draw. Moving into Sunday, I was looking at Sunday and it's termed Super Sunday. I was like, this really isn't super, but then I've realised why it is. Sunderland Middlesbrough, that's a derby. So Sunderland with David Moyes, they get quite frustrated, with derbies. Obviously against Newcastle over the years, they really, get involved. Up north, they love it. Everyone loves a good derby, but it's especially noted, up in the northeast. A lot of violence and so on. But I do feel like this one probably end up a draw. Sunderland v Middlesbrough. I don't know how Middlesbrough play on the road. They may be quite poor, and obviously Sunderland will want to bounce back from the defeat to Manchester City last week. So I'm going for a draw in that game. Moving into the final game, we've got West Ham against Bournemouth. West Ham's first Premier League game at the Olympic Stadium, I believe it's called. Something like that anyway. There's all controversy over the naming rights, but I do feel like West Ham are probably going to have enough to get the victory in this game. It's whether they're going to feel the effects of playing in Europe this week. They played in Europe on Thursday, so obviously that's why they are on Sunday. But stats show, if you've played in the week, you are a bit tired. You do not always perform to your best ability. So maybe Bournemouth can go and surprise a few people, especially, they'll want to bounce back after the game against United, where they would have felt like they played, well enough for a draw. But obviously the scoreline was very harsh on them. I have gone with the West Ham win purely because it's the first game at the Olympic Stadium, and obviously their fans are very, very passionate. They're going to want a victory. They're going to demand a victory. They're not going to lose their heads if they don't. But obviously, the West Ham fans are very passionate. And I do feel like they've got a decent team, West Ham. So I have gone with a West Ham victory. But as I mentioned, the European tired legs may have an effect. They were actually away in Europe. I just want to point that out. And then obviously, Bournemouth will be looking to bounce back under Eddie Howe. So, that game could go one or two ways. But I am predicting a West Ham victory. But that is all for the first week of insert title name here, because I don't have a clue what it's going to be called. But if you do want to come on this show in the future weeks, be sure to, as I said before, drop me a DM on Twitter, or just tweet me or whatever. Send me a friggin' letter, fly here by plane, whatever you want to do. Just get in touch and let me know, and obviously I'll have you on the show in the coming weeks. I'm not too sure how long this video has been. It's felt like a while, but obviously I've been on the phone a few times, which I do apologise for. These things just have to happen sometimes. But thank you all for watching or listening, whatever I'm going to say. I'm not too sure. Thank you for listening. That's probably more apt. We'll catch you next week. It'll probably be Thursday, Friday, I'm not too sure, but it probably won't be Friday going forwards. I've probably left it a little late this time round. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, goodbye.